So welcome again. Thank you for joining us today for Better with Age, a speaker series brought to you by Mature Minds through Catholic Family Services. We're so grateful that you would come and join us and learn how to make your aging process better. We believe that growing things grow and bring life. And so as we grow older, we can grow in our age and bring life as we age as well. So welcome here. Thank you again for joining us. You'll notice that your cameras and microphones have been turned off. You'll see Danisha's face, and Colleen has joined us as well, and you'll see me, but your microphones have been muted. We would love for you to use the chat and the question and answer features. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A, and we will answer those at the end of Danisha's presentation. We ask that you don't record or take pictures of the presentation. It is being recorded, and if you'd like a copy of that, I will send out an email after. You can email me back, and we can hopefully send you that recording. While we're here today, we just want to acknowledge the land that we're on. Currently, the office that I'm sitting in is in Barrie, and so we want to welcome all of our visiting community members. We are located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. CFSSC respects Indigenous history and culture and is dedicated to moving forward in the process of reconciliation with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people. So who we are with Catholic Family Services, we are providing help, offering hope, and changing lives. We do this through counseling and community development. Mature Minds is part of our community development program. And so I love that I get to run Mature Minds, that I get to work with older adults. And if you'd like any information about the things that we're doing, I can send that out to you after. Now, I am delighted to introduce you to today's speaker. This is Danisha Allen. She is an affiliate with Edward Jones, and she is a financial advisor with Edward Jones. Prior to her current role, she enjoyed a successful banking career for 10 years. She holds an MBA in finance and investments from Marywood University in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Danisha is passionate about helping people achieve their financial goals and believes that simplifying financial concepts is as important as the recommendations that she makes. When she's not in the office, she enjoys exploring the outdoors with her husband of 18 years and adorable boys, Jordan and Joshua. Additionally, she loves community and is an avid volunteer with Kiwanis International and Empower Simcoe's Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. Danisha, thank you so much for joining us. And we also have a colleague of yours, Colleen. Colleen, thank you for joining us as well. We're so grateful that you would be here and take your time. Now, I have a question for both of you so our participants can get to know you a little bit more. Would you rather tacos or burgers?
Burgers,
Oh,
hands down.
I'd say tacos. Hopefully it's fish tacos. I'm a seafood guy.
Okay, we
Fish
got
tacos.
burgers and we got fish tacos. Great. One more for you. Would you rather go to the beach or to the mountains?
Beach.
Beach.
We'll get you some burgers and tacos on the beach. We could, or at least pretend to. Now
Perfect.
I am delighted to hand it over to Danisha that you can present. And hopefully, as I said, we'll have more of our people join us. And if not, then we'll send them the recording later on.
Sounds good. Are you able to see my screen, Jenna and Colleen?
I
I am indeed.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Jenna, for inviting Colleen and I to speak. Again, my name is Danisha Allen. I have been an advisor with Edward Jones for 4 years. And I'm also honored, and I know you had mentioned introduce Colleen, but I'd want to give Colleen the opportunity to introduce herself, who she is. Go ahead, Colleen.
Hi, morning everyone. As Danisha and Jenna has already said, my name is Colleen. My full name, my name is Colleen Coleman Wright. I am a licensed attorney in Ontario. I'm actually, I'm a sole practitioner at this point. I'm located in downtown Toronto. I have over a decade worth of practicing experience. My practice background was corporate commercial, real estate, business law, which included estate plannings, both for individuals and businesses. And in most recent years, I've added immigration to my repertoire. I'm actually licensed to practice law in 2 countries, Canada and my home country of Jamaica, where I still maintain a practice there as a consultant to a law firm. Well, a little about me. I'm unfortunately, I'm not as fortunate as Danisha. I don't have any kids, and I'm divorced. Okay. I was married for 16 years prior to that. So I'm now single, divorced. Don't cry for me because I'm not sad. I'm not one of those sad divorcee. I love what I do. I'm passionate about the law and helping my clients find legal solutions. Yeah, as I said, I love what I do. I do a lot of cross-border transactions too, which involve estate planning and helping people structure their affairs across borders, especially, well, in North Americas. I think that's it. And I like tacos and the beach.
Thank you so much, Colleen. And I invited Colleen because I believe that estate planning it can be complicated and complex, and it requires a team approach. And therefore, we have her here. I'll scroll down. And when I say we need a team approach, you will definitely need 3 individuals on your team. You'll need a financial advisor who will just help you to identify your needs as it relates to investments and your assets and how to transfer those assets to the next generation. But you'll need a lawyer to help you draft up these documents. And then you'll need an accountant to help you mitigate taxes. Because don't you forget, there's 2 things that, are certain. Sure. There is death and there's taxes. So we want to be, shrewd there. From a financial perspective, there are 5 financial needs, not your basic needs that are food, clothing, and shelter, but from a financial perspective, you want to, 1, prepare for retirement. There is living in retirement, paying for education, planning for the unexpected, and then, of course, there is estate planning. As it relates to any goal, even in estate planning, there should be a 5-step process. You'll have to take a look at, where am I today? What are my assets? What are my liabilities? What's my current situation? Well, how many kids do I have? Who do I want to transfer wealth to? And then secondly, where do I want to be? How do I efficiently want to transfer these assets? Can I actually do it? Your estate planning team will help you to get there. And I think the primary thing, and if you could take away anything from here, is always review. And so that's how we do estate planning. We figure out where we are today, where we want to be, are my goals realistic, and what are the tools that we need to get there. Now, let's jump in. My family, they don't like to take me to the movies or tell me a story. I want to cut to the chase. I want to hear what the climax is. I always look at the back of the book or read the summary before I even sign up to watch a movie. And so here is the big reveal. When it comes to your estate, if you took no action at all, everybody in this room has an estate plan. Let that sink in for a second. If you did nothing at all, you still have a plan. But the catch is, does your plan reflect your wishes? Does your plan reflect your wishes? And you know what? Estate planning can be an emotional and difficult topic to talk about, because usually it has to do with the death or the incapacity of a loved one. But as emotional as it is, we want to be able to be in control, because I'll let you know something here, and Colleen can speak to this later, that if we don't make a proactive estate plan, the government, the provincial laws will make those decisions for us. And I'm so glad that I was able to speak today, because I think it was late May that this person isn't in my family. They married in their, I don't know the relation. I think it's my cousin's husband's somebody aunt. She lived in Jamaica, went to the States, amassed some wealth, and then went back to Jamaica. So she has money both in the US and in Jamaica. And she did never put her kids on her account, nothing at all. She passed away just in May. And now all her assets are frozen, and all the family members are in a tizzy, because now she might have to have a pauper's funeral, because now there's no money. She is wealthy on paper, but everything is frozen because she didn't do the right thing. So now I feel like my job, my crusade of telling people to have an estate plan, it actually happened to someone close enough to me. Okay. Moving on. So to set the stage, what I will do, I'll be talking about 3 scenarios. I'll give, some stories on 3 families, on situations that occurred, and then Colleen will give her 2 cents on what will happen from a legal perspective. Here is scenario 1. We don't have an estate plan, and we don't need an estate plan because, I don't have assets, or people might think that estate is for those who are wealthy. But the truth is, we do have some assets. We have jewelry, we have a house, and we want to make sure that we are in control of what happens. So here it is. Meet Claire. She passed away recently at age 68. Her husband predeceased her. She has 5 children and 9 grandchildren. She was able to pay off her house, and her heart's desire was to transfer wealth to her children, as well as help to pay for her kids' post-secondary education. Now, Colleen, you have seen where, in situations where there has been a plan in place and situations where there are no plans in place. From a legal perspective, what happens to Claire in both situations?
Thanks, Danisha, for that scenario and posing that question to me. Yes, I have seen both sides of the coin, and the latter is not, it adds more distress in a family's time of grief, to put it so simply. I have to be lawyery and start with a basic definition, or help legal definition. So you've explained estate planning from a financial perspective, but just from my perspective, I just wanted to put it in that frame. So estate planning is primarily the means through which an individual establish how they want their estate to be distributed amongst their intended beneficiary, taking advantage of tax deduction, deferrals, and minimizing government probate fees. So those are what you should have in mind. It's not just, as you said, I don't have much, but it's how to structure and organize your affairs so that when you're gone, things fall in place, especially as you intended it. So for Claire, firstly, if the 2 coins, if Claire died leaving a will, that's great. Hopefully, I think the scenario said that her husband predeceased her. One of the first things is it's hope that she would have updated her will after he died. Notwithstanding, in the scenario where she dies leaving a will, then the will would have taken account of what she wants to do with the house, any savings account. I think she had a RRSP and other assets if applicable. One of the benefits of having the plan in place before Claire passed is it said that she wanted to leave stuff for her children and grandchildren. For her registered investments, she could have created a trust. If she had spoken to the proper lawyer, they could have created a trust, which could have helped direct and dictate how that money should flow, perhaps flowing towards the funding of her grandchildren, and of course surpassing the administrative stuff of the will. So that's a useful thing if she had spoken to somebody and they had done proper estate planning. If she died without leaving a will, then of course we said it. The unfortunate thing is all these nice wishes and intentions that Claire had in the beginning, well, prior to her death, would have come to naught, because if she died without a will, she would have gone into what we call intestate, which is a plan. I liked how Danisha puts it. She says, you know, even if you don't do anything, you do have estate planning, because what you basically done is allow the government to distribute and manage your estate after you've died, which is not the wisest thing to do for many reasons. So if she did not leave a will, it goes into intestate. One of the first things is, who will be your administrator? Somebody needs to be appointed. She then needs to go through the court, well, or her estate needs to go through the court process of getting that administrator appointed and then administering and distributing her estate. But again, this administration and distribution is done pursuant to the laws in place, not based on anything Claire or her family would prefer or desire.
Thank you.
Did I touch all the others?
I think you did. I think you did. Thank you so much, Colleen. And like you said, an estate plan really gives you those tools that you need to put you in control of how you
of the driving,
and of how you want yourself and your assets to be treated. Because in an estate plan, it's not just about your assets, it's also about incapacity. If at some point, you know, you're unable to make decisions, you want to make sure that you was proactive in that. Okay, we're moving on. So the second scenario, it won't happen to us. So meet Sanjay and Nisha. They have 2 kids, Nia and Rohan, and they have been married for 18 years. Now they got a babysitter and went out for a night of fun. And on their way back, they had an accident where Sanjay passed away and Nisha is incapacitated. And we all have heard of how, you know, we think to ourselves, it won't happen to us for sure. And that's one of the unconscious things we say to ourselves to not get around to do the things we should do. And so in Nisha's, in Sanjay's and Nisha's case, there are many questions here. You know, who will pay for the funeral? Who will cover Sanjay's lost income, the mortgage, the kids' education? In this case, they didn't have an estate plan because they thought it wouldn't happen to them. When it comes down to these expenses and investments, what happens, Colleen?
Well, again, we will try and flip it in terms of a scenario where they do have a will versus if they don't have a will. So we'll go with the will perspective. If they had a will, again, and it was done properly and specifically to their circumstances, then hopefully these issues would have been sorted, how these payments would have been dealt with, more so as it relates to, well, funeral expenses. Normally the general, if anybody has ever seen a will, I think what we call the recital, the first part tends to talk about, you give power to your trustee or your executor, and then it tells you, it gives instructions. One of the first things a testator, we call it in law, does is you give instructions as to what should happen in case of your death, you know, who pays your bill, how the bill should be paid, whether you want to be cremated, etc., etc. So it dictates it. One of the things it says is, of course, your funeral expenses should come out of this estate. The trouble with that is, and again, if it's not done properly, is the logistics of it, right? So you can have a will and have all these legalese written in, but if the logistics is not put in place, you have bottleneck. You can still have delays to fund your funeral. And that's another thing I think people don't think about, because you cannot take the expense out of the, it's depending on where your funds is and what it's involved in or what's it tied up in. It might take a while to liquidate, etc., etc. So you want to have proper financial things in place so that things are easily either accessible or be able to be liquidated, so that you can fund that first part of the funeral expense and those initial things that happen. Mortgage, you want to make sure you have your proper insurance on the mortgage. Let me back up, other than the will, because estate planning is not just about a will, there are other devices and instruments, as we call them, that you should have, such as power of attorney. In Canada generally, we have, I think, 2 to 3, depending on your province and where you are, types of power of attorney. You have continuing power of attorney for property, you have power of attorney for healthcare decisions, and you have, well, some people call it non-continuing power of attorney. We won't deal with the non-continuing, but to go back to these two scenarios, they would want to have, or everybody should have power of attorney as it relates to healthcare decisions, because it can happen to anybody. You can get into an accident, you can get incapacitated, and decisions need to be made as it relates to how your healthcare and other stuff. Housing, healthcare is what the power of attorney dealing with healthcare covers. The power of attorney or continuing power of attorney for property deals with how, if you're incapacitated, how you handle your property. Perhaps depending on the health situation, your property might need to be liquidated to deal with your bills, etc. So they should have had, also being parents, they should have had their respective power of attorneys that will help to guide them. Oh, could you keep the slide on this? Sorry, I'm using the slide as my mic. Could you go back? Yeah, right there. I'm using it to help me answer the question. Sorry.
Sorry, my darling, I'm here.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, and so sorry, I just lost my track of it. Right. So yeah, so they should have their will, and the will, activated on death, but you also have your power of attorneys, which are very important. That's basically a way of life. While you're living and something happens, somebody can take control of it. Point to note, like I've seen it with couples, so they each have power of attorney, but if Nisha, I think it said Nisha was incapacitated. So Sanjay died, Nisha was incapacitated. The power of attorneys might be affected because she herself doesn't have, so she can't do anything, because what should, in an ideal thing, not ideal, but let's say he had died and she lived, she could have just taken on, continued to deal with the kids, the medical expense, the house, investment, etc. But now what you have is two parents who are not able to provide, not able to parent, one dead and one incapacitated. You have the kids here. So those power of attorneys should have been, you need to make plans for your kids in case both of you, not necessarily dead, because that's what you still have one living parent, but not the one who is living is incapacitated. She can't make any decision. Again, using my experience, what tends to happen is they do power of attorney and I give you, so they do cross. So husband gives wife, wife gives husband, or partner one and partner two. But again, if you're in an accident, both of you are incapacitated or gone, well, if you're gone, sorry, I should back up. If you're gone, power of attorney ceases, right? The power of attorney ceases, so that doesn't play. But in this case, as I said, she's incapacitated. What should have happened is hopefully she gave a power of attorney to another person who could step in and help her with the kids, or take control of the kids, a guardian of the kids. And that is important when you when you have two parents. You can't think it never happened to you, because the likelihood is it can happen to you, because parents and the kids are always traveling together. And we've seen it on television. I've never known anyone who'd happened to, and I hope not to, where two parents in a car accident and that's it. What happened to the kids if the documentation, their wills and their estate planning did not cater for such a scenario? You need to think about that.
Mercy. Okay. So we'll move on to scenario 3. So there are people who say, we have a plan, we're set for life. And so meet Carl. He is in his second marriage. He was married 5 years prior, and now he's married to Veronica for 12 years, and they have 2 children. Early, he made his estate plan, but since he got married again, he has not gotten around to making changes. And they were on a bike ride, and he started to have chest pains. He went to the hospital, stayed a couple of nights, and was sent home under, bed rest and to de-stress. And he did not die, but this was a near miss for Carl. And he went to his estate planning team, and he found out that if he passed away in that incident, most of his assets would have gone to his ex-wife and not to Veronica and the kids. No, I have caught those things before. So I would have people in my office and the husband would bash his ex-wife, bash his ex-wife all the time. And then we said, okay, let's take a look at your insurance review and your RSPs, just regular, just taking a look. When you look, his RSPs, his pension from his old job, his life insurance, all had the ex-wife. Now those things, but those things cannot be disputed in court because you specified who you wanted to be your heir. So in this case, I don't know if you want to say, put your 2 cents in, Colleen, what happens here? He was, he had his plan, so he'll review. How important is it to review, Colleen? Have you seen it?
Very, very, very important to review. You review, and revise, and you do it. The question normally sometimes is when. Every single time you have a life-changing event. What do I mean by a life-changing event? It doesn't have to be dramatic or drastic. It can be at the birth of a child, the expectation of a child, a change in job, because sometimes you change your job, chances are you're going up the ladder. Change in job means your retirement plan might shift, a big investment or a big change in your investment, starting a business, of course, separation and divorce. that's dramatic. That's very big. Acquiring assets, whether real estate or other valuable assets, and that could be stocks, bonds, other valuable assets. Every single time these events or similar events happen in your life, you don't have to perhaps go to a lawyer and sit down and spread your papers out every time, but at the very least, perhaps with your financial advisor, you need to sit down or make a call to the financial advisor and say, I've done this, I've done that, because chances are it might trigger something. You might do a revision and you don't need to review it or revise it, but you might do a revision and realize you do need to revise it also. And of course, the more clear one in my case is the law changes, right? The law changes and you want to take advantage of it. It could be to save more on your estate planning regime. It could be, it might be beneficial to do a trust here, a trust there for the kid. It could be several things. So you want to review, revise every single time something happens in your life, right? So it's not about just buying the cake and celebrating with the champagne. You then need to think, I need to have a look at my estate planning and see what needs to be changed. If I may, the questions you asked, who are beneficiaries, executors. So on the legal side, of course, again, just to help, your beneficiaries are those people who you have identified and want to give. We call it gift. You want to gift something out of your estates. That's how we put it in law. Your executor, beneficiaries normally is going to be your loved one. That's easy to choose, easy to determine and decide. Your executor and your trustee, they're very important. They're basically going to be the gatekeeper, your administrator, the people who you're going to put your life in after your death. All that you've built and acquired and everything. These are the people who are going to control, dictate, and ultimately carry out your wishes. So you need to select them carefully. Of course, they don't have to have any special skills, etc., but you still need to select them carefully. To give you an idea of the appointment of it, they're appointed by virtue of the will. Upon your death, they basically step in your shoe and start to do what it is that needs to be done. If you have minor kids, and we're just using wills now, we're not talking about other estate planning instruments, because as I said before, there are other estate planning instruments, and I don't want anyone leaving here today to think the only thing that I need to do is prepare a will. No, your estate planning regime depends on your particular circumstance and your particular situation. It's individualized. It's almost as I will take liberty by saying it's almost as unique as your DNA, because it's specific to you. It's what you want, right? So we have lawyers, we have a lot of standard form, and people think, oh, I can just pull one down off the internet, etc. No, I'm sure what I want, I was going to say, I don't have an estate, I'm missing. What my wishes are for upon my death is different from what Danisha wants, for several reasons, of course. The composite of her family is different from mine, etc. But let's say we had on paper similar composite. We were both married, 2 kids, etc. It would still be quite different, I tell you. It would still be different in terms of what our ultimate estate planning should be. So it's not something to be taken lightly. I don't recommend you pull something off the internet and go, okay, that person get that, that person get that. because at the very least, you want somebody to sit with, help put together something that fits you, so you can take advantage of all the, at the very least, take advantage of all the government, the provisions, because there are so much benefits in structuring it properly, whereby your loved ones can get more of your estate and not less. Back to the executor. So the executor steps into the shoe. Basically, he uses, the will is the guideline. Again, if that's the only estate instrument, because there could be trust, there could be other documents that needs to be administered and dealt with. Yeah, he basically does what he needs to do by virtue of the will. There are, if you have kids, as I said, the executor could be the trustee, or you could have separate arrangement for a trustee, because kids are dealt with, they're delicate, they're dealt with separate, right? When you have kids, because remember, for the basic reason that kids can't own property, right? The name can't go on the title, they can't walk into the bank and deposit and withdraw money as they like. Somebody needs to be put in that shoe, which is another reason why you need to be careful and think seriously as to whom you want to entrust, using that word, entrust this responsibility with, your executor / trustee. Note of point, there are professional, as we call it, or corporate, I think, like professional executors out there. I mean, unfortunately, some people's circle, and I think I remember when I moved there, I moved to Winnipeg first. And my neighbor was an older person. And of course, when you live to see 80, 90, it's unfortunate, but majority of your friends and families have predeceased you, right? You have not many people left. So if you find yourself in such a position, they are corporate or professional executors. I mean, your lawyer will help guide you, etc. So you don't think, oh, I don't know anybody, and chances are, even if I appoint this person, they might die. You know, we're running this race, they might die before me because we're both 80, 90 years old. There is ways to get this thing done and have it done properly, right? So there's help out there. There is advice out there. Yeah, so, yeah.
I think that's good. That's awesome, Colleen. Thank you so much. So now we're gonna shift gears and I'll start to move quickly. Now, usually the typical objectives around estate planning, and we have spoken about these things in our discussion today. But I love everything that Colleen said, that there's no one size fit all. And then the thing is this, the complexity of your estate plan will be determined by the level of control that you want. If you want to determine how and when, specific dates, those are the things that will cause your estate plan to be more complex than if you wanted the estate to be transferred freely. So some of the objectives are, of course, transfer of assets. We spoke about incapacity planning. Colleen touched on guardianship of minor. And then there's charitable intent. And of course, a very big one, we want to be tax efficient. Now, of course, I'll go again. There are no one size fits all, but every well-made estate plan will have 3 major goals. One, where we plan for the expected, then we prepare for the unexpected, and then we position for both. And I heard Colleen just going in and out on some of those things. I just love it. So we plan for the expected. So we look at our current situation, our assets, our liabilities, our income needs, our heirs. And then we start to think about what our key priorities are. Is it asset transfer? Is it business succession planning? We determine in our planning for the expected, we're wide-eyed and clear. And then there's another portion when we're planning for the expected, is to be transparent. One of the big things that I do is have family summits where there are no surprises when we talk about what each person is gonna get, who's gonna be the executor, so that upon your passing or incapacity, there's no stress. Everybody knows their role and knows exactly what they're getting. And it removes animosity among family members. And of course, planning for the expected will also have to balance competing goals, whether it's what's more important to you. Is it living well in retirement or leaving a larger estate for your family members? And then we prepare for the unexpected, because the unexpected could derail the plan that you put in place so beautifully. And of course, Colleen spoke about the unexpected things, a divorce, the death of a beneficiary, or I've seen illnesses that has, derailed our plans. And then Colleen mentioned again, government laws and changes, which could be for your benefit or it could be a detriment. But in that case, we will be able to pivot. And there's one other thing that could derail our expected plan is these incorrect implementation of your plan, inconsistencies with names. Oh, I want to leave my house to my gardener. His name is Johnny, but his name was Winston Churchill. If there are inconsistencies in the names, it's over, right? So we want to plan for the expected, prepare for the unexpected, because one thing we can depend on is truth. I won't stay long here, but we will just have a catch-all situation. If this happens, let's put in a strategy that will accommodate for both. And again, I mentioned you'll need a team approach. And then if there's one thing you can take away from our discussion today, is just to review. Review. And don't put it off. There's help out there. You're never alone. Go through the yellow pages if we have yellow pages anymore, but there's help, and review. And here we are, the importance of reviewing. You look at your current estate plan and your supporting documents, make sure your beneficiary designations are correct, make sure your insurance policies are up to date and have the right people on there. And as Colleen said, major life changes, review, because that's where people really miss it. And now we're at the end to take questions, if there are any. Thank you so much, Jenna.
Danisha, thank you. Colleen, thank you so much. That was so informative. And also, I could just listen to you both talk all day. I love it. So I have a question for you. What age do you recommend people start thinking about estate planning?
Yeah. As soon as possible, as soon as you start to amass wealth.
I would go even further and say as soon as you have the first bank account, because that's the first bank account. Yes. The first bank account. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is good to know. You've definitely given me some things to think about in my own personal life, of things that I need to take into consideration. So I really appreciate that. What would you say is one of the largest challenges that you've seen clients face when it comes to estate planning?
The largest challenge, for one, is that people think it's complicated, and it is, but there is help. And the biggest thing is just not preparing for the unexpected. That piece, they will prepare and they'll have their will and they'll have their RSPs with beneficiaries, etc. But there's no contingent for the what ifs that can completely cancel out what they've planned for. What would you say, Colleen?
I'd say just starting is their biggest thing, like yes. This trepidation of, and I guess it's twofold. It's the human part of us thinking, if I start thinking that, am I saying that my life is going down? And then the second thing is they just don't know where to turn. Where do I start? I think is one of the biggest challenge. Where do I start? They're not sure if do I well, maybe you can help. You're financial. I mean, I'm the lawyer. We have to get involved somehow. I always said, yeah, this is what I like to tell my client and all of them, irrespective of the practice area. It's nice to start with us. Don't end with us. It costs you more when you end with a lawyer than when you start with us. I'm telling you, that's the honest truth. People always think just because of our nature, the last thing I want to see, not a doctor, the last thing I want to see is a lawyer. Don't do it. Start with us first. Not trying to outdo whatever. The truth is a financial, it's where to start. Is where can I reach out for that first level of advice or where to turn, and some like what Danisha and yourself are doing, that's where I think you guys come in as vital, is they honestly don't know, where do I start? It just feels a bit overwhelming. So even those who are not in the thing about, oh, I'm not afraid of death, or it's not about that part of it. The flip side is, oh my gosh, where do I start? Do I do this first? Do I do that first? Do I approach this advisor first? Do I approach that advisor first? They just don't know where to start.
Okay. And so you were saying that you would suggest they start with someone like you, with a lawyer.
No, that was me kidding. They could, but the truth is, no, I'm actually, no, that was me being candid, but I'm honestly saying what you guys are putting together, what you guys do is, I guess, the outreach. You need to reach more people, because that's where they need to start. They need to start with somebody like you, who can then direct them in the different action. Because when Danisha, somebody like Danisha, sits down with them, right? Having heard their story, she, because of her experience, skill set, and what she does, she will say, okay, I think you need to go speak to this tax advisor first, because that's the truth. Depending on what I keep saying to you, it's a particular thing. It's a cut to fit. It's not a one size fit all. It's a cut to fit thing. Estate planning, I can't emphasize it more. It is. So having heard, she can then say, having regard to what you've just said, I think you need to go talk to the tax advisor first, because they may need to sort out some tax issues first. They may need to come to the lawyer first. They may need to go to the insurance person first. They may need to sort out their financial whatever landscape first. But being a person like Danisha, I'm saying she has that wherewithal. She could be the first outreach, and should be the first outreach, and then she can direct them. Then having done that, now they come back. It's almost like, forgive me for the use of word, forgive me, you could be the concierge of estate planning. That's kind of what it is. You need that concierge service.
So, and I always
say to my, I can copyright, I can do the intellectual property rights stuff if you need. But seriously, they need a concierge. They need an estate concierge who will help to direct and tell them where, because those who don't think they don't have any, but even the small little person, a little mom and pop shop, whatever it is you have, or even Claire, let's go back up to Claire, right? Claire had an RRSP, she had her house, I'm sure she had savings account, etc. As simple as Claire is, maybe it's a friend who told her, hopefully, if she did the will part, somebody would have said, go talk to that lawyer. But maybe what you should have done first is gone to a Danisha, and then Danisha would have, as I said, done the concierge stuff, work her magic, and then her estate at the end of the day. You see, doing that, sorry if I'm going all over the place, doing what I'm suggesting in terms of getting that person, your estate person, your estate concierge, having that person initially, it might increase the value of your estate in the end, because having the right advisor helps you to structure things properly, which increases the value. So you might have had $10, quote unquote, on paper in assets, but if it's structured properly, at the end of the day, your beneficiary, instead of getting only $5 after all the taxes and expenses, if it's structured properly, maybe you net out, maybe your estate nets out 8. That has to do with proper planning. I'm telling you, that's what I'm saying. Talk to your advisors first, not in the end. Your advisor should be your friend, your best friend.
I can imagine that many people would want to be best friends with Danisha. For sure.
Exactly.
I've saved many.
And even that thing, she mentioned something, which that one I've never heard of. Again, we're the lawyers, nobody talks to us on that level. But she mentioned this, you said you had you call it a family meeting?
Yes, a summit where we come, and then I'm in the room, because people tend to behave when there is a neutral party. They tend to behave.
You see, that's the opposite of what I experienced. Because what happened to is, because as I said to you, yes, a few people come and we do their will, and if they're business people, we do their structuring. Because again, my background is corporate commercial, so I deal with a lot of business people who value estate planning, because they understand that they need succession planning in their business. Individuals, if they're just an employee, they're the ones who think, I don't need to do anything except a will. But so when you actually, as I keep saying, they come to the lawyer in the end, which is when we're doing the actual administration of the estate. And that time the parties are not cordial. They're not, it's too late. But if people had, and that's it, that's when all, excuse my French, all hell breaks loose, because that's when they know this person was the executor, that person getting that, and it's war right down to the courthouse.
Yeah, so transparency.
I love that. I love that. We need more of that. We need more of that.
Yes, that transparency piece is so necessary. And because we live in a culture that is deathly afraid of death, We don't talk about it.
Yeah.
We don't talk about planning. We
Emotions.
don't talk about it with our families. And even I would say before I started working here, I didn't want to have the conversation with my parents about what their plan was. But now that I've worked in this position, working with older adults, I see the value in knowing what other people are thinking. And because I would hate that if my parents died and I didn't know what they were planning, and then to try and sort that out with my brother. I have a great relationship with my brother, but I know that money can make things funny.
Yeah, and then you're mourning too. And people act different when they're hurting. You lash out when you're hurting. But if the last thing you're thinking about is your finances, that's taken care of. Now I can mourn. I know all is well.
Yes, that you can grieve. So I thank you so much for your time in this. We are going to end it here, but I appreciate your willingness to answer questions and just the information that you've given. I think that, as I said, it's given me things to think about, and we will hopefully be able to make this recording available. I feel like, as you said, Colleen, some of it is that first step of just knowing. People don't know what they don't know. I had a university professor once say that common sense isn't common until it's known. Yeah. So if you don't know it, it's not common sense. And so thank you for helping us help people grow older by growing their knowledge. We really appreciate you being here. But thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and I can almost guarantee that I will be in touch for possibilities, and we want to keep Better with Age going. In the fall, we want to be able to provide people with opportunities for a social and educational component where we'll be able to see other people's faces as well, and then provide education in these various topics. So for those of you who are watching or will be watching this in the future, we are going to be able to, we are having another Better with Age coming up next week. We are going to be having Dr. Will Willman, who wrote a book called Aging, Growing Old in Church. He's going to join us next week to discuss his book, to discuss aging and spirituality. We'd love to have you join us for that. We also have, we're taking a week off, and then we're back again to talk about third age learning with Emily Wolst from Lakehead University. They're talking about how Lakehead is becoming age friendly and how there's opportunities for older adults to grow in their education. And then in September, we're doing an Ageism in Media webinar that is free to join. We just understand that ageism underlies a lot of our challenges. People don't do estate planning because at the core, we are an ageist society that fears aging and fears death. And we want people to grow old, to grow better with age, to know that aging is a privilege, and to understand that there's different sources and resources available for you. So thank you again for joining us. You can email me for more information at jwickens@cfssc.ca. Thank you again, Danisha and Colleen, for your time. Loved having you here, loved hearing your thoughts, and hope that we'll be able to get together again with you soon.